friends. So excited that you're here today, and I hope you're excited for all the things 2023 has in store. I hope you are ready for my art journal walkthrough because I can't believe that I actually stuck with it the whole entire year. If you're new to my channel, hello, I'm Katie, and I recently quit my job in insurance marketing to be a full-time illustrator, hopefully a children's book illustrator. I also love to read, and I started this art reading journal last December. I have a whole video of me setting it up. This is a mini moleskin journal. It's not specifically for drawing, so the pages are a little bit warped. I use this journal as a visual representation of the books I've read. So I'll take quotes and snippets of scenes I like and kind of just interpret it onto this page so I don't forget all the books I read. And I haven't seen many people do this, so if you are interested in doing the same, if you like to combine art and reading, I encourage you to try it out in 2023. I hope this video gives you a little bit of inspiration and some book recommendations. I like mostly literary fiction and a little bit of everything else, like fantasy, romance, sci-fi sometimes. I don't know, I read pretty much anything. So instead of going in chronological order of the books I read, I'm going to be doing them based on my star rating. So I'm going to start with my least favorite book and go to my 5-star rated books. And my ratings aren't really based on anything technical. Obviously, I do enjoy good writing, but it's a mix of my reading experience during the book, plot, the characters, the writing. If I cried during a book, it is automatically rated 5 stars. I enjoy that level of pain. This will be a spoiler-free walkthrough, so I will give you a little bit of a synopsis of the book, so if you want to check it out, and then I'll give you a little bit of my thought process behind the visuals I chose for it. So don't worry, there will be no spoilers during this walkthrough. So these are some of my spreads from 2021. And last thing before we get into my most hated book of the year, please comment if you are interested in me starting a channel specifically for books, because it's honestly really fun for me and I'd love to share it with you guys. If you do want to chat more books, I have a book club over on Patreon. Each month we vote on a book to read and do reading co-working sessions, chats, etc. So check that out. Everyone is super, super nice. I love everyone in my book club. And also follow me on TikTok or Instagram to see my monthly reading wrap up before this epic year-end flip through. And with that, I'm going to turn my hater mode on. The only book I gave 1 star, which I didn't even bother to make a spread in this journal because I did not like it. And I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum. I read this expecting it to live up to the hype because apparently Colleen Hoover, sold more copies of her books than the Bible this year, which is honestly like, what? I was in shock and horror reading this book on a red-eye flight. Like, I actually thought I was in some sort of fever dream. I was like deprived of sleep and I was reading this. I was like, what the heck is it going on? And that book was Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. If you love her books, I have no problem with you enjoying it. It just was not up my alley. And honestly, I think she deserves jail time. Hot take in the beginning of this video. The Clockwork Reader has a really great video on why she is not the best. So yeah, I just didn't make a spread for it because I didn't like it at all. So that was my only 1-star book. We'll move on to my 2-star books in no particular order. I had 3 books that I rated 2 stars this year. Don't recommend them. They just didn't have that wow factor for me and I wasn't too in love with them. And I'm usually pretty generous on my stars. The first 2-star book was Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This one was a childhood friends to lover book, and it's another book that a lot of people loved, but I just didn't particularly like that much. An alternating point of view romance book, and yeah, didn't really feel too strongly about this book, and I think now I'm realizing I don't really like cheesy Hallmark movie rom-com books. They're just not really my fave. I did like how they had a secret library nook that they would meet up and read books together with. I thought that was super cute. So that is what I chose to draw here. And by the way, I'll leave all the art supplies and books I read in my Amazon storefront down below so you guys could find it easily. I'll make like a list so you guys don't have to go searching for all this stuff. But yeah, I used Posca markers for this, and this journal actually holds the Posca markers pretty well, even though these are like fairly thin pages. But yeah, I just drew the characters and their little library, and that was super cute. Next is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, which was a recommendation from my brother. It's a really quick read about alternate dimensions and the consequences of traveling through those dimensions. I predicted the ending, so I wasn't very shocked, hence why I gave it 2 stars. In this book, there's like a metaphysical hallway with all the different dimensions. I thought that was a really cool visual, so I drew that hallway. And when I was reading it, the hallway in my mind had no color, so I chose a monochromatic color scheme. Here I used Faber and Castell ink markers, so I had a bunch of different shades of gray, and that was this one. The last 2-star read, which was really surprising because I usually really love everything this author makes, was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book is about 4 famous siblings and the events leading up to a party that will change everything for them. So throughout the book, things unfold, secrets unfold, and I really, really loved the sibling dynamics in this book. I just couldn't really sympathize with the characters very much, which is why I gave it 2 stars. But all of them are really, really good surfers, and the setting of the book made for really fun visuals. So I chose like this happy color palette, and it drew a bunch of surfboards. But going on to my 3-star reads, some of these are a 3.5, and this is the category that most of my books I read are in. And these are the books I enjoyed, I would 100% recommend, but I just wasn't left with that, oh my gosh, like wow, that book was so good, I love it so much, and I want to read it again type vibe. Or I just didn't have that much of a personal connection to it, because I do find that when I read books, I really look for that personal connection. Go by genre, since there are a lot of books in this section, and the first genre I'll do is nonfiction. First 3-star read we got is Cultish by Amanda Montell. This is an analysis of cultish groups and the psychology behind the language that they use. She goes from anything from Peloton users to actual cults that like do bad stuff. I believe the author has a podcast, so the audiobook did kind of feel like an extended podcast. Yeah, I learned a couple new things and I felt like it was easily digestible. Here I was really playing with the psyche and how some of that language can make you feel. Next book is The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. It is a memoir about the loss of her daughter and husband, and it's hard for me to rate memoirs, so I just kind of always give them 3 stars. This was a book on grief that was really beautiful, but raw and very, very devastating. This one I put some quotes. A single person is missing for you and the whole world is empty, which is a devastating quote. I was really trying to capture the feeling of loneliness and grief and loss in this. Yeah, this person does feel very lonely. On Earth, We're Briefly Gorgeous is another 3-star, beautifully tragic memoir adjacent book. I believe it's fiction, but Ocean Vuong takes a lot from his personal life. It was written as a letter from a son to his illiterate Vietnamese mother, and I am Vietnamese, so I did relate to some parts of this book. And the writing was very lyrical and stunning, which sometimes kind of went over my head. But I really love this quote. It says, "It's true that in Vietnamese, we rarely say I love you. And when we do, it's almost always in English. Care and love for us are pronounced clearest through service." And this was so true. Like so true. Again, with memoirs, I find it very hard to make a visual for it. So I kind of took this quote and I made a little comic on how my family says I love you, because we don't explicitly say I love you all the time. We kind of do it in little ways here and there that kind of show that we love each other. So 1 is through food. 2 is through doing our skincare together. And 3 is saving our favorite shows to watch together. And you could see it. It has Survivor on the TV because my family would love to watch Survivor together. So that's how I interpreted that book. 3-star fiction, starting with classic books. I read Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut, which honestly kind of confused me the first half. I was like, what the heck is going on here? Let me try to read some quotes that I liked from this. So the first one is, new knowledge is the most valuable commodity. This one here, if it's legible, truth was the enemy of the people. Religion became the instrument of hope. And another classic book I read was The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. I honestly really like this. This book came at a time where I was thinking about quitting my job. I related hard to Gregor when he was in bed. He was like, I don't want to go to work. Plus, any opportunity to draw a bug in a fun hat, a fun fancy hat, I will take, because I love this spread so much. I think it's so funny, like him looking into the mirror and he's like, what the heck? This quote I really liked. I cannot make you understand. I cannot make anyone understand what is happening inside me. I can't even explain it to myself. Like, felt. And this one, especially this one, was me. How about if I sleep a little bit longer and forget about all this nonsense? Too good. 3-star books, no particular order. The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This was a really cute enemies to lovers romance. Nothing much really to say about it. I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was quirky fun. I don't know, quirky fun romance. Also, I find it hard to come up with visuals for romance books too. Like, what the heck am I supposed to draw? Like hearts? Obviously, I did draw hearts. We're biology grad students in this book, so I drew some DNA, and the main character really loves sweets, so I drew some sweets. This is a cute spread. The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires was our October Patreon book club read. It was about a group of stereotypical white Southern ladies with terrible husbands. I hated their husbands, who became vampire slayers, despite the whole town not believing them. It was a book in the horror type genre, and I'm pretty new to that. It was very gory, maybe a little bit too gory for me, but definitely not as gory as probably some horror books. Gross at some points, I think, and violent for no reason at one point, but it was like a fun book. I love these vampire motifs. It was a really great book to read in October especially. Cute vampire guy. He's so cute. Claire and the Sun was told from the perspective of a robot toy, and I was really expecting to love this one, but it was a bit slow for me and a little bit underwhelming. The quote I liked from this was, perhaps all humans are lonely, at least potentially. There's a lot of pink and red in this sketchbook. The Guest List by Lucy Foley is an alternating perspective thriller mystery book. I cannot put this book down, and the ending was very surprising for me. I just didn't feel very connected to the characters, which might have been on purpose because I don't think they all were supposed to be particularly likable. But I love that it took place on this deserted, dark, and stormy island, and there was like a huge, old, renovated castle. I love that visual, so obviously I had to draw it. I used pencil for this spread, but honestly, it's kind of smudging a little bit, so that might have not been the best choice for this sketchbook. Okay, this book was a fun time. It is Happy Hour by Marlo Granados, and it was a good time, no plot, just vibes book about two girls who are just scraping by in New York City. So you follow them as they go like on dates with rich men, just get in all sorts of trouble. And honestly, it was so fun to read. A lot of inspiration from the cover of this book, so this was really fun to make. The last 3-star read I have is Ninth House, which is a fantasy about Yale's elite magical societies. I am really into dark academia, and there are some that I really love, so this one didn't wow me as much. The main protagonist here is able to see grays, which are these kind of like ghosts who are haunting the earth, and she's trying to solve the mystery of Some Murders on Campus. And the first half was incredibly slow to me. I almost DNF'd it, but then the second half was a lot happened in the second half, and then I was hooked again. So I definitely will read the second book in the series. But yeah, I think there are more dark academia books that are better, and I'm really excited to read Babel. Actually, I am currently reading Babel and The Memory Police in December, so this doesn't include December books because I haven't finished reading them yet, so they're not in here. Honestly, just had no idea what to do for a visual of this book. I just made something like dark and creepy. And yeah. Next are 4-star reads. These are the books that I really enjoyed, but there's just one thing keeping it from being a perfect 5 stars in my opinion, and that honestly is probably if I cried in it or not. First one is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. This is another October spooky read. I think now looking back, this might be considered a 3.5 stars for me. A haunted house mystery, and there is a book within a book, which I thought was really cool. And I liked imagining all the various items in the haunted house. Like there was this huge creepy armoire. Am I saying that right? I hope I just did not butcher that. There was a Ouija board, creepy stuff, and it was just really fun drawing all these objects. Norwegian Wood by Murakami was another 4-star read. I honestly can't remember now. I read this probably in January, so I don't remember much of the plot of this book, but Murakami is one of the authors that really got me into Japanese fiction, which I really, really like. I love the dreaminess and surrealism in Japanese literature, and there are a couple more coming up, which I like even more than this book. I can barely read this. Oh my gosh. You're walking through a field all by yourself one day in the spring, and then a sweet little bear cub comes walking along. It says, "Hi there, little lady. Want to tumble with me?" So you go through the clover cup. I'm going to write what it says right here. This really has nothing to do with the actual book, but this is just what stood out to me. Okay, Braiding Sweetgrass is one of my favorite nonfiction books of this year. Robin Wall Kimmerer really weaves indigenous knowledge and science together, and it's all about plants and what they can teach us. Chapter is about a different species, and I really love drawing these field notes type of spreads, and with a nonfiction book I'm really trying to get as much information as possible, hence why there's more texts in these spreads. But yeah, this one spans 2 pages because this book took me a very long time to read. It was like a 1 chapter every couple weeks type of book. Another nonfiction book that kind of has a similar spread is This Is Your Mind on Plants by Michael Pollan. And in this book, he talks about 3 different plants, poppy, coffee, and mescaline. I think that's how you pronounce it. So I did another similar type spread on this. I drew the plant and then the information he provided about it. I listened to the audiobook, which I enjoyed. It felt like listening to a podcast rather than a nonfiction book. Science books, I like listening to the audiobook more than reading it because I kind of fall asleep sometimes when reading nonfiction. I learned some new stuff that I didn't know before. Oh, I totally forgot to put Cersei in my 3 stars. Madeline Miller is the author of The Song of Achilles, which I loved. So I had to rate Cersei against that one. I still really liked it. About the myth of Cersei, lives on an island and she comes across various heroes in Greek mythology. Magical, so I enjoyed drawing all these magical elements and then her little magical island that is secluded from the rest of the world. If We Were Villains was our November book. For November, I had patrons pick from a list of dark academia books, and this is the one that everyone picked. I'm not expecting to like it as much as I did. I love dark academia so much. Anything about a group of students and a murder, like, I will read. That is peak literature to me. But I bumped this one down to 4 stars because I think I would have enjoyed it more if I liked Shakespeare. Like all dark academia books, the students are in some niche program at like a small liberal arts college, and in this book they were Shakespeare students, and I don't know anything about Shakespeare, so I think I would have enjoyed this a lot more if I was into Shakespeare, because they were like all like every other passage was Shakespeare and they all talked in Shakespeare lingo. So yeah, this would have been a 5 stars if I was into Shakespeare more. Another one of our book club reads was Convenience Store Woman, and it's about a 36-year-old woman who has been working at a convenience store since she was 18 in Japan. It was a little bit looked down upon. Kyuko, the main character, was funny, and I loved reading from her perspective. A lot of people speculate that she has ASD, and I kind of really liked reading from her perspective and a perspective of a character like that, because I don't think they are usually represented a lot in books, so I thought that was cool. As long as you wear the skin of what is considered an ordinary person and follow the manual, you won't be driven out of the village or treated as a burden. And I drew a woman, and in her head is the convenience store that she worked at, because that was pretty much her life. Her life revolved around this one store. And then The Factory was another Japanese novel about 3 workers who go work at this factory that pretty much owns everything. Like, this town is run by this factory. It's kind of like Amazon or something. And weird stuff starts to happen on this campus. It's very dreamy. A lot of people described it as Kafka-esque. Kind of feels like a fever dream. And in this book, there's like descriptions of these animals that only live on the factory grounds. There is a factory shag, which is like a really crow-like type of bird. A gray-back kopu, which I think is like a cousin to a capybara. It kind of, when I looked up descriptions of what koipu were, they looked like capybaras. So I kind of drew like a capybara type animal. And then there were washer lizards who live under the washing machines of the factory. So I kind of mended that field notes type spread with this book. It has nothing to do with work, and work has no real bearing on life. I used to think that they were connected, but now I see there's just no way. This one really was relatable to me. I'd probably zone out in front of the TV and battle with my own demons the rest of the day. Me. Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton is a memoir about relationships, funny dating stories, and friendship. I really enjoyed it because I felt like I was the target audience for this book. I listened to it on audiobook, and Dolly Alderton herself narrates it, so it was really funny listening to her tell these stories. But I do share an Audible account with my parents, and for some reason they listened to it while driving somewhere, and then they didn't like it at all. So I think if you are someone like me, you will like this book. Also along the same lines, I read Conversations on Love. I think this is a 3-star rather than a 4-star. This is by Natasha Lunn. She actually interviews Dolly Alderton in this book, so that's pretty cool if these are like kind of like 2 books that you could read together. So Natasha Lunn is interviewing different people on their perspective of love, and I thought it was a good read. I don't really have much to say about it, but I think it would be really great as an audiobook. Okay, another Taylor Jenkins Reid book, Daisy Jones and the Six. I love this one. I rated 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo 5 stars, and that's the book that got me into reading. I couldn't give this one 5 stars because it wasn't as good as Evelyn Hugo, so I couldn't rate it 5. It goes through the dramas and the relationships of this band, Daisy Jones and the Six. It's told in an interview type format, so it made it really easy to read. All right, we have Miss Sally Rooney, and she's one of those authors where you either hate her or love her. Comparing this to Colleen Hoover, I think I really like these because they are really believable. They're kind of a slice of life, and although the characters are not particularly likable, I feel like they're very real, and I really like reading books like that. Beautiful World, Where Are You was amazing. This one follows 2 couples as they navigate their relationships, and it just has that Sally Rooney touch, you know? It's kind of awkward, painfully real. On a flight to Denver with 2 of my friends, and we all sat in different seats, but we all read this book at the same time, and then by the time our flight was over, we all finished the book, and then we discussed it in the terminal. It was a good time. And I think that's one of the reasons why I really liked it, because I got to share the experience of reading it with my friends. And sometimes a book just comes at the right time, and that kind of influences my rating. And I love this spread so much. Emily Henry is another one of my favorite romance authors. I like her characters. I like the romance in her books. They are a little bit more real and not as cheesy. There is still a little bit of cheese in them, but they're not as cheesy. My favorite book by her is Beach Read. I love that book. Lovers, though, is about two people in the publishing industry, and they are enemies to lovers, which I love a good enemies to lovers trope. And they are in this small town of Sunshine Falls, and you could guess what happens. And then my last 4-star book is kind of a 4.5, was Jeanette McCurdy's memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died. It couldn't be a 5-star read, honestly. I'm gonna place it in this cusp of 4 to 5 stars. This is all about her toxic relationship with her mom and her experience in the industry. Trigger warning for ED in this book if you are planning to read it. Despite the dark topics, her voice is very humorous in this book, and I felt really proud of her at the end of it. It was like the most talked about book this year, so I really recommend you check it out. Now we're on to my 5-star favorite books of the year. To go in no particular order here. The first one is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I loved it so much. The story instantly hooked me. Basically, the main character wakes up in a spaceship with no recollection of why he's there, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. It's an alien, and I really love how the relationship with him and the alien unfolds. It's just so good, so wholesome, and I really like the mystery behind it, like to find things out as the main character is also finding things out. Next 5-star read is Strange Weather in Tokyo by Hiromi Kawakami, and I don't know why I love this book so much, but I did. I fell in love with it for its vivid descriptions of food. This is another Japanese novel. It had a weird but oddly comforting romance. To be honest, it might make you a little bit queasy. It's a 72-year-old man with a 30-year-old woman, which they're both adults, they're both consenting adults, but it still was a little bit weird because that's very old. I just had to picture him like 20 years younger. I kind of just ignored the fact that he was very, very old. It's a nice snapshot of life, and just, yeah, I really love slice of life stories, and it jumps around and follows the two each time they happen to meet, whether it's at a bar, while they're walking, and then you could see their friendship kind of turning into something more. And I just really liked it. There was a mushroom hunt. It was just a good time, and it's a pretty short read too. And I used gouache for this spread. I just took it straight from the tube. I really like these two colors. Quote, even a cracked pot has a lid that fits. Cute. Next 5-star read. Severance was a book that also came at a time where I was quitting my job. So this, in combination with the Metamorphosis and the Factory, kind of solidified my decision. So people who think that books don't have an influence on you, they do. They really do. There's a global pandemic in this book called the Shen Fever. It turns people into zombies, but not like the type in The Walking Dead. They're just continuing their everyday life with no consciousness. So these zombies will just continue going to work or making dinner for their family, just doing stuff that they did before and just keeping to their routine. Character Candace is navigating the post-apocalyptic world with a new group, and then we get flashbacks of her life before. All right. Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. Hands down, one of my favorites. And my favorite Sally Rooney book. I feel like the spread didn't do this book justice. I wish I did like a better spread here. I don't know why I like this book so much, but I did. I want to read it over and over again. I wish the show lived more up to the hype I had for the book. Like Beautiful World, Where Are You? This one is about 4 people and their relationships with each other, except this one was about a married couple and then 2 friends. But then they end up just being entangled all with each other, and you know, you just have to read it. You just have to read it. Point where they go to this villa and it has like a nice ocean and stuff, and I just love that, so that's what I drew. Okay, The Secret History was hands down my favorite dark academia book I read this year. This book is just the blueprint for dark academia, where there's a group of friends and a murder. Like this was the original. So freaking chaotic, and I just ate it up. I ate up that chaos, and yeah, the ending was the most chaotic thing probably ever. I was not expecting that ending. I just really love books where you're in one character's perspective and you're just living their life with them, and then stuff unfolds and you're just finding out about all that stuff that's unfolding, and you're finding out secrets and you're finding out things about other characters. And this was just, yeah. At first I didn't think this was a 5 stars. I was a little bit bored in the first half, but then it kind of stuck with me after I finished reading it. And then after like a couple months of me constantly thinking about this book, I was like, yeah, this is definitely 5 stars. And the last book is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. Honestly amazing. It follows 4 generations of a Korean family who immigrated to Japan. I cried several times during this book. I gave it to my mom. She loved it. I don't know if she cried, but I would be surprised if she didn't cry. It's heartbreaking, emotional, and I think it thoughtfully explores themes of identity, belonging, and intergenerational trauma. The main character, Sunja, got her start selling kimchi at a fish market, and I love to draw fish, so I chose to draw like a little snapshot of a stand at a fish market. If you are debating whether you should watch the show or read the book, I really recommend reading the book, because the book has a linear narrative rather than the show that kind of jumps around, and I think having it be linear works so much better. This is Pachinko, and that is everything I read in 2022. Like to read along with me with 100+ other friends over on Patreon, definitely join my book club. I posted a poll on there before this on which of my 5-star reads we should read in January, so head over there to read with us. Read one of the last couple books we just talked about. Access to reading co-working sessions, movie nights, and a secret shop with a monthly bookmark illustrated by me, which is cool. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'll continue my 2023 reads in this journal. I have about 30 pages left. But I did find it a little bit small, and I do wish I had a place to write. I do wish I wrote more on the book, so I might change the journal I use. If you do want to see a video of me setting up my 2023 reading journal up when I decide what I want to do, give this video a like, leave a comment, and yeah, also let me know if you read any of these books, what you thought about them, and what your favorite books of 2022 are. I would love to know. That is all. Thank you so much for being with me here today and letting me chat about books with you guys. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.